Hello, everyone. We are officially in the home stretch right now. At the time this video is being aired, it is Monday, so we are only 5 days away from Christmas Day. So this is a big week. And so let me officially wish you a Merry Christmas, because the likelihood is I'm not going to see a lot of you before Christmas. Maybe I'll see some of you at Christmas Eve, but so Merry Christmas, all right? And I hope this week is a special week, and this coming weekend is a special weekend for you and for your entire family. Yeah, this is a familiar story, the Christmas story. I'm going to read for you a passage that people, more times than not, this is the passage they go to when we're talking about the Christmas story. It is Luke chapter 2, starting in verse 1, and here's the way it reads. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went to his own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and the line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in clothes and placed him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over the flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people." Yeah, and then continues on. Today, in the town of David, the Savior has been born to you, Christ the Lord. The passage goes on, but I'll stop there. Like I said, this is a familiar passage for most of us. We've read it, and it will be read, by many of us again, and within our family gatherings and stuff like that, as the week progresses, and rightly so. I like this because this particular week gives people time to reflect. I know it's really busy. There's a lot of plans and preparations. Some of you are packing, getting ready in a couple days to head out to some loved ones' homes and another location. Others of you are trying to get the house ready because you got people that are coming in. I know it's a busy time, but yet at the same time, it is a time that people reflect more than normal about one of the greatest events that happened in human history that is recorded right here in the Bible, and that is the birth of the Son of God, Jesus, into this world. So what I want to do is I want to share a thing or two from a perspective about this. Like each staff member, they're taking a different angle on this. I want to talk to you just a little bit, first of all, about Bethlehem, because the events, they took place in Bethlehem. Bethlehem would have been a small town, kind of a dot on the road, approximately 300 people or so maybe that were living, calling it home, living there. A one-horse town, as the expression goes. And there probably wasn't very many people of significance, movers or shakers, that called it home. At least I'm not familiar with any. I know at an earlier time, hundreds of years earlier, you have like David, King David. This was his hometown, but that was a long, long time earlier. However, I will point this out, that the prophet Micah had something significant to say about Bethlehem. And this, in Micah chapter 5, verse 2, actually was recorded 700 BC. So this is 7 complete centuries earlier that the prophet said, "But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. Yeah, it was a prophecy that ended up being fulfilled with the birth of Jesus. That's recorded there in Luke chapter 2. So God has had his eye on Bethlehem for a very, very long time, that something extremely significant was going to happen there. So that is the setting for the Christmas story. Now, Mary and Joseph, they didn't live in Bethlehem, so they had to travel. They had to travel there, and that was approximately 80 miles, close to it. 80 miles they had to travel. And back in those days, a good day of traveling, you could cover 20 miles. So we're talking about multiple days, at least 4 days of a trip. Riding on a donkey, to top it off, this would have been rough. The fact that she was 9 months pregnant would have made it even all the more uncomfortable. Colette and I just recently kind of made a spur of the moment decision to go on a road trip vacation, and we went down south to the Gulf Coast, and it was going to take a grand total of 15 to 16 hours on this road trip. So we broke it into 2 days. The first day, we made it a big day, 12 hours in the car. Now, that's in the comfort of a car where you control the climate, heating and air, and all this kind of stuff, and the wind isn't, you're not feeling it in your face and everything. So it's kind of a comfortable setting. But I got to tell you, though, after 12 hours in the car with periodic stops to fuel up, we finally got to where we were going to be spending the night. And I got out, and if there had been someone standing there watching me, take 3 or 4 steps in order to get the gas hose and go over to the car and put the nozzle in the car, and to do that, they would have thought I was acting like I was 95 years old. Because, man, these bones were aching after 12 hours sitting in a car. Every little step, my hip, my knees, my back, all of it was... So if that can happen when you're riding in the comfort of a car for 12 hours, imagine riding on the back of a donkey, for 4 straight days. And on top of that, you're 9 months pregnant. Yeah, so this was quite a journey that they were making. And then when they get there, they just discover no vacancy. That's what the tail end of verse 7 is basically saying when it says that Mary, when Jesus was born, she placed him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. No room in the inn. So basically they ended up being stuck out back in the barn, a stable. Justin Martyr, who was back, I think he was born about 100 AD, died about 165 AD. He talked about it being a cave, but they would use caves and stuff to keep animals in. All the same, it was a place where they stabled animals, and there was a manger there, and that's where Jesus ended up being placed. But it was all because there wasn't any room in the inn. Now, I want to hover on this thought. This is going to be kind of along the lines of what my central thought is here in this video. People tend to throw darts at this innkeeper. I mean, I've heard sermons about him, about how, man, he would not make any room for the Savior. He did not have any room for Jesus. And boy, you and I, we need to be different than that. We need to make room for Jesus, and, along those lines. And I think that's kind of unfair, to approach this toward the innkeeper. Because I don't really think that the innkeeper was a problem. I don't think he was a bad guy. Someone somewhere said every story has a bad guy in it. And so he's been made out to be the bad guy here. I don't think he's the bad guy. He didn't have control of this situation. I mean, it was Caesar Augustus back in verse 1 of that passage that gave the order that this census was to be taken place. And so that meant a ton of people were traveling because people were going back to their birthplace in order to get an accurate head count within all of the Roman domain. And the whole ultimate purpose of all of this was so that they would get the taxes that they were wanting. So ultimately it was Caesar Augustus that was behind all this. And so there would have been a lot of people that would have been in Bethlehem that under normal circumstances wouldn't have been there. And the fact that Mary and Joseph roll into town and there's no room in the inn, I don't think that was because the innkeeper was a bad guy. He went ahead and found room. It was in the stable. And so that's where, the nativity scenes and all of this kind of stuff, comes into play here. But with that thought, that's where I want to leave you, is I want to chase that thought just a tad. Instead of saying and judging the innkeeper about having no room for the Savior and all this, I think the question still is a good question, but the question needs to be asked to you and me. Have we made room for Jesus? Have you made room? Not just in this Christmas week, but any given week. What about this year, 2021? Had you made room for Jesus in your life, in your schedule, as being a priority, in your family? What about as we rapidly approach 2022? Are you making plans to make room for Jesus? This reminds me of a verse that's in the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation. Revelation chapter 3, and this is something Jesus said to the church at Laodicea. He said, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with him and he with me." Jesus wants a relationship. He wants to be close to you. He wants to be close to me. But he's not going to force that upon us. So there we have the image, the picture of Jesus standing at the door. Think of it as being the door of your heart. And he's patiently waiting for you and for me to make room for him in our lives. Have you done that? See, I think that's the pertinent question here. And it's my prayer that you have. And if you haven't, that's something you're going to seriously look into and do something about. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. We have a lot to celebrate because of Jesus' birth some 2,000 years ago. We have a lot to celebrate. And so for you and yours, I wish you the best this week and a Happy New Year that will be happening a week later. All right, you guys take care. I'll see you soon.